All right, what we're going to do, like I said, those perfect trinomial squares, they held up that pattern of those square roots of your first and last term. We multiplied them and then we doubled them, and that would always give us that middle term. If it followed that pattern, it was a perfect trinomial square. So we're going to take that pattern and we're going to use it to our advantage, and we're going to work ourselves backwards. Okay? So remember, we're just kind of work backwards. So remember our x squared, if we took its root, that would be x. And over here, we would take this root, right? We don't know what that one is. We can get it by working backwards. Okay? So remember how you got that middle term. You got that middle term, right, by multiplying or by taking their product and doubling it, right? So what's the opposite of doubling or multiplying by 2? Dividing. So we're going to take our middle term, we're going to divide it by 2. That's going to give us a 7. So that's this root right there.
Wait, tell me why we divided by 2 again.
Because remember how we get that middle term. We get that middle term by taking these two roots, taking their product, which would be 7x, and doubling it. Right? So the opposite of multiplying by 2 would be dividing. So that's why we divide by the 2. Okay? So then, if we know that this root right here is 7, what's its square? 49. So we would complete it by putting a 49 up there. So we basically, right, we squared it because these are the roots. So come over here now, and we're going to put it in its binomial square. So what's going to go in the first position? The x. What's going to go in the second position? The 7. Now, positive or negative, go to your middle term. Negative. And there's your square. You got it. Now we have an x squared plus a 9x plus our last term. We don't know what it is, but we're going to find it. So we're going to reverse our process. Remember how we got that middle term to begin with, right? We took these roots. So the root of x squared would be the x. And then we're going to find this one, right? We're going to find that one. So what do we need to do to the 9? Divide him by 2. Ooh. We're not going to change him to a decimal. We're going to leave him as a fraction, okay? So that means we're going to take that 9 over 2, so he's the root, and we're going to square him. So when we square him, what's he going to be up here? What? Yes, 81 over 4. And there it is. We're going to come over here and put it in the binomial. So the binomial... The binomial squared is what's going to be inside? X and 9 over 2. And is it going to be plus or minus?
Plus.
Yes, plus.
Where did that 4 come from on 81 over 4?
That when you square the 2. Because remember, when you square both numerator and denominator.
Where did 2 come from?
That when we divided the 9 by 2. Remember, we're always going to divide that middle term. So if your middle number is odd, coefficient is odd, you're going to end up with the 2. And then whenever you square it, you're going to end up with the 4. That'll also be a pattern that you work through on these. Okay? Any other questions on that one? Let's try one more, and then I think you guys will be ready. Okay, now we have an x squared plus 4x plus what we're going to find. So if we're thinking backwards, we know that that's x, and we need to find this one. So 4, what are you going to do to him? Divide by 2, and that's going to give you a 2. So let's put that. So we found that root. And then we're going to square him, and that's going to be 4. So 4 goes up here. So what's your binomial going to be? X plus 2 squared. Okay. Now, this process right here. That's what's called completing the square. Okay. We didn't really do anything with the 4 when we were just completing it. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take this method, we're going to throw it in to our equations. Okay? And so now that number will become important to us as well as our square. Okay? Okay. The most important thing when we're working with these equations and we're going to use our method, completing the square, it has to be set up correctly. The problems that we just finished doing, we were given the two x terms, right? And we worked ourselves backward to find what that c value was, right? So when we set these up, our x terms have to be together because those are what we're going to work with. So they're going to have to be on one side of the equation. We're going to find that third number, so we don't want another number. So we'll put our x's to one side, and our constants we will put or leave on the other side. So in this particular case, we're going to move the 12x over. We're going to leave the negative 20 where he is. Okay? He's not really part of the process. We will bring him back in once we complete the square. So we'll use him, but for the actual process itself, he will just stay on that other side. So let's move it over. That 12x will be moved over as a negative. So we'll have an x squared minus 12x. Now, add in your square that we're going to find. And equal, don't forget you still have that negative 20 over there. This is an equation, right? If I'm going to add a square over here, do I have to do the same over here? Yes, absolutely. Equations must stay balanced, so we're going to add a square over here as well. So let's stick with the x squared minus 12x. Let's do your little method that you just learned how to do. What's the first thing you're going to do? Divide that 12. That's going to give you a 6. And then you're going to have to do what to move him up? 36. Yes, you're going to square him, and it'll be 36.
It's negative 12, so it's going to be negative 6.
No, we'll put the negative in our answer. Now, if I add a 36, I've got to do the same over here. So put him in the square on the other side as well. We've got to keep it balanced. So coming back to to this side, I want you to put him in its binomial. So what's the binomial going to be? X minus 6 squared. So Joseph, there's your negative, okay? Equals, what are we going to get when we add a 20 and a 36? 16. Oh, negative 20, I'm sorry. Okay, now we're going to continue to solve this. We want that x. We've got to get to the x. Our problem is that the x is embedded or is inside this square. But can't we get rid of it? Yeah, how can we get rid of that square? Taking the square root. So let's do that. So we're going to take the square root. We have to do that to both sides. Remembering that over here it's your positive negative. So this works out really nice. So once my square and my root cancel each other out, what am I going to have left over here? All I'm going to have is x minus 6, right? So very easy from this point now to get to him. Over on the right, what can we do with the square root of 16? 4. That's perfect, right? We're going to get out a 4. We're going to get a positive and a negative 4, right? Now, one more step. How are we going to get x by itself?
Add the 6.
Add the 6, yes. So we're going to move our 6 over to both sides. So that will give us x equal 6 plus or minus the 4. That's half of it. So the 6 plus the 4, yes, would give us the 10. But what about our 6 minus 4? What's that going to give us? 2. So there's your x's. There's your zeros or your roots or your solutions. Remember quadratic, so it'll have its 2 solutions. 3. Okay. So if I factor the 3 out of 1, remember this is an equation, we're going to factor it out of all of them. So that's going to leave us with an x squared plus a 6x plus our unknown that we're going to find, our square, equal 45 divided by 3, 15. And plus our unknown that we're going to add to the other side. We got to keep him balanced. All right, what are you going to do next? We're going to complete the square. Yes, yes. So you divide your 6 by 2, and you get what? 3. So that's the root. So what's his square? So there's your square. Okay. Now, your x squared plus 6x plus 9, what does that look like as his binomial? X plus 3 squared. Okay, 15 plus 9? 24. Okay. So you're on the road now. You're going to start solving for your x. How are we going to get to him? Square root. Square root. That sets this up. This is why we complete the square. This is the whole reason we do it, so we can get to the x. So cancel those out. We get x plus 3. And what do we have over here? We have plus or minus square root of 24. Now, can we simplify that 24 down? What are you going to use? No. So what's the perfect square that's inside it? 4. Okay, so I'm going to come back up here. I'm out of room. Sorry, guys. So we have x plus 3 equal to the plus or minus square root of 24. So that 24 can be broken into its factors of 4 and 6. So the square root of 4 is 2. So we're going to end up with the plus or minus 2 square root of 6. You've got one more step. What's your last step? So what are you going to do that? Minus the 3's got to go over, right? So subtract your 3 from both sides. So we'll get x equals negative 3 plus or minus the 2 square root of 6. You may leave your answer in that form. That would be your final.